Okay, we are doing some Algebra 2 here. We're at part B, where we are going to be finding all of the real roots of this polynomial. So remember, our first step is to find out what our possible rational zeros are. So we're going to take the constant term 4, and we're going to write out the factors of 4. So when you're writing out the factors of 4, think, okay, what can multiply to be 4? So for that, we can have plus or minus 1, 2, or 4. Any of those would work out. Okay, so I'm going to put those on top of my fraction. And then the Q is going to be on the bottom. And that will be factors of your leading coefficient. So your leading coefficient for this is going to be 2. So what goes into 2, what factors are going to multiply to 2, and that'll be plus or minus 1 and 2. Now to figure out what our possible rational zeros are, we're going to divide them. So if I do 1 divided by 1, I'm going to get plus or minus 1. 2 divided by 1, plus or minus 2. 4 divided by 1 is going to be plus or minus 4. Now when I divide by 2, I'm going to go 1 over 2, which will be 1/2. And then 2 over 2, which is going to be 1. That's already on my list, so I don't need to put it on there again. 4 divided by 2, that's going to be 2, so I don't need to put that on there again either. So the reason why we're finding this is we're trying to find out what the possible zeros are so that we can go ahead and find our actual zeros. So for the next step, I'm going to graph my original equation, and then I'm going to see if it crosses the x-axis at any of those values. So let's go ahead and plug that in. Okay, and then once you have that plugged in, we're just going to graph it. Now if you don't have the standard window like I do, you can just go to zoom and then press 6 so that you have that standard graph. And then I'm just going to estimate where I think my intercepts are. So it looks like it's close to 3, but maybe not going through it. And then over here, it looks like maybe it's going through 1/2 or 1. So any of those are going to be good things to try. So on your graphing calculator, I'm just going to write down, okay, that the best x-intercept I saw was at -1/2. Alright, and so I'm going to plug that in using synthetic division. So I'm going to line up my coefficients. So 2, -3, -10, -4. I don't have any missing. I'm going to check to see if -1/2 is a x-intercept. So I bring down the 2, and half of 2 is 1. Because it's negative, it'll be -1. Add straight down. -4. Half of -4 is 2. Because this is negative, it'll be, well, it's -2. And then half of that will be your 2, negative times a negative will be positive, -8 times -1/2 will be 4, and then this will be 0. Now if you get a 0 here, that means this value is a 0, so we know that -1/2 is one of our final answers. So this is one of our final answers. So from here, what we're going to do is we're going to take this and rewrite it in the quadratic form, because this is our remainder. This is our number term, this is our x term, this is our x squared term. So now I have the equation 2x squared minus 4x minus 8 equals 0. And if you want, you can notice that all of these have a common term of 2. So you could factor out the 2 and divide it by both sides. That would make it easier when you're trying to solve with the quadratic formula, but you don't have to do that. You just have more simplifying to do. So then we're going to find our a, b, and c and use the quadratic formula to solve. So our a value is 1, our b value is -2, our c value is -4. We're going to plug it in, the opposite of b, plus or minus b squared minus 4 times a times c divided by 2a. So -4 times 1 times -4 is going to be positive 16, so this becomes plus 16. 4 plus 16 is going to be 20. Now you have to make sure that you take out any perfect squares. What's the perfect square in 20? Yep, it's 4. So you can think of this as the square root of 4 times 5. But what is the square root of 4 going to simplify to? It's going to simplify to 2. That's why instead of the square root of 20, I can write it as 2 square root of 5. And then I have to make sure when I simplify, I divide both terms by 2. So 2 divided by 2 is going to be 1, and then 2 root 5 divided by 2 is going to be root 5. So my 3 zeros are negative 1/2, 1 plus root 5, 1 minus root 5. Now if you go back to the original, you can see the degree is 3. So because it has a degree of 3, this is going to have 3 zeros, which are 1, 2, and 3 right there. All right, good work.